Hello there, everyone. Whether you are a faithful Niners fan like myself or anyone else who might just be watching for playoff scenarios here, this scenario is taking a look at the San Francisco 49ers potential opponent for the wild card round, but this also is just to take a look at the playoff scenario coming into this here as of week 15 now being in the books. Here's the current situation and where I think the Niners very well might be up against, or who they will be up against actually. So to give a quick rundown still of the top 7 in the conference right now, Eagles still hold. They won 13-1, clinched a playoff spot. They can clinch the division this week with a win over the Cowboys, which could factor into what I'm about to talk about a little later on here. Vikings pull off a comeback of the ages against a really bad Colts team. Congratulations. You win the division as a result of that. Still holding number 2. Niners win, clinch their division as well, 10-4. Can't go no lower than third now. Can potentially take second place. As you can see right here, I still have the conference record as the deciding factor because that would be the tiebreaker should both these teams tie record-wise. Niners still hold the edge there at 8-2 compared to 6-3, and the Niners still have 2 games to go left in the conference, whereas the Vikings still have 3. So we'll see how that turns out. 4th place, the Buccaneers still limp along and still carry that division for right now, even after a kind of a bad breakdown against the Bengals. But the other teams in the division lost there too, aside from the Saints, because they were playing the Falcons, so I guess someone had to win. That being said, they still hold on to it, but the room's still open on that one. Cowboys lost to Jacksonville. However, if I have to put this here, they actually did clinch a playoff spot though, because Washington did lose Sunday night against the Giants. So they backed their way into the playoffs. Cowboys, this is their last shot at winning the division this week. The Eagles just have to win one more game. If they end up beating the Cowboys, that's completely it. The Cowboys have to win out. So I don't see it happening. The Cowboys are probably going to be stuck in the 5th seat there because I don't see them collapsing that bad to where the Giants, the Commanders, Seattle, or Detroit could potentially ever catch them. Then right now, from the Sunday night game, Giants won, take over 6th place. The Commanders still hold on to 7th because of that tie that they had a few weeks ago. And that tie is going to be both a blessing and a curse to both of the Giants and the Commanders. And I want to explain why. Over here on the right, these are potentially the 4 teams that the Niners could face in the wild card round, where they finish 2nd or 3rd. It would depend who they play, 6th or 7th seed there, respectively. If they finish 3rd, 6th, 2nd, 7th. Down here, you have Seattle and the Lions, 8th and 9th, because they're the other 2 teams that potentially play. So looking at the next 3 weeks for all these teams, the Giants got Minnesota, Indianapolis, Philadelphia. Washington has San Francisco this week, followed by Cleveland and Dallas. Seattle has to go face Kansas City, gets the Jets and the Rams, and then Detroit finishes up with Carolina, Chicago, and Green Bay. Over here at the bottom is the tiebreakers. Now the tiebreakers, this is going to be kind of thrown off a little bit because of those ties. But the pecking order actually right now would be Seattle, Detroit, Giants, and Washington if everything was the same, but it's not because of the Giants and Commanders not knowing how to win a game. So Seattle, they've beaten the Giants, they've beaten Detroit. They never played Washington head-to-head, but they do hold a better conference record at 5-6 compared to Washington's 4-5-1. That's where that tie is going to haunt the Commanders in that case, should they happen to end up with the same, well, actually, they really can't end up with the same record because of that tie. So it's either going to harm them or hurt them in the long run at the end of it all. Same thing with the Giants. Now, Detroit, they did lose to Seattle, but they beat Washington, beat the Giants. Once again, it all comes down to those ties. Because at this point, though, the Giants and the Commanders are either going to have one more win than Seattle and Detroit, or one more loss than Seattle and Detroit, essentially, unless they completely collapse for some sort of reason. But if everything was to go stabilize there. Over here at the very far right, I kind of put what I think these teams are going to do for their last few weeks. I think the Giants, they can go 2-1. Their loss is probably going to come against Minnesota. Minnesota, granted, I don't think Minnesota is a very strong team at a number 2 seed, but they are still playing to keep that number 2 seed from the Niners. So I think that they're going to be playing all out as much as they can. I don't know if the Giants can match up with them. Hey, anything's possible though. The Colts, well, we saw what the Colts did against Minnesota there, blew a 33-point lead. So the Giants, I think, could win that one, and I think they can actually beat Philadelphia, because if Philadelphia, especially Philadelphia, beats Dallas this week, because then they're not playing for anything at that point. You clinch the division. At that point, you'd be 14-1. The Vikings could still go. The Vikings could still go 14-3, but the Eagles beat the Vikings in the head-to-head this year. So at that point, if the Eagles win, I do believe they clinch the conference then at that point. So if they win this week, I don't think they're going to be playing for anything week 18. They'll probably rest their starters at that point. You're the number one seed at that point. Everything has to go through you to the Super Bowl in Philadelphia. So I think the Giants can win that one. 2-1 over the last 3 with a 10-6-1 record at the end of it all. Washington, you got the Niners this week, and San Francisco's not going to be playing their backups by any means. Yes, they clinched the division. They can go no lower than third, but they can still get second place, and I have no doubt they're going to do everything they can to get that second place from Minnesota. So I think that's going to be a loss. Cleveland, I think they can beat Cleveland. And then Dallas, this is kind of a situation along with the Giants here. If Dallas loses this week, they can't win the division anymore. I think they're going to finish in 5th place. I still think they're better than the Giants and the Commanders and any other team that's potentially playoff, that could be a playoff contention behind them. So at that point, they might not be playing for anything. So it's possible Washington might be able to beat Dallas, because Washington would very well be probably playing for their playoff lives at that point. For some reason, I still don't see it happening, though. I just feel like the magic isn't going to be there come that point. So I think Washington finishes the season with a 1-2 record, goes 8-1. Seattle, good luck with Kansas City. That's probably going to be a loss. The Jets right now can't seem to find themselves at the moment there. As much as the Jets have been a very, very good story this season, I think the Magic's running out for them. I think Seattle, well, actually the Magic's been running out for Seattle too, but I think Seattle will be able to overcome the Jets in that case. And the Rams, they're not playing for much. They might just play for spoiler to keep Seattle out of the playoffs. I think Seattle could still win that. That would put their final 3 games at 2-1 with a 9-8 record. And Detroit, yeah, Detroit's defense still isn't anything special, but they've gotten a lot better over the season, and they right now they're rolling. It was a tough game against the Jets this week for them. They still managed to win it after a comeback here, and I think they can go 3-0 in these games. Carolina, they're still trying for the NFC South, but losing this week to Pittsburgh did not help them in any situation. I think they're going to be fading pretty fast here. And Chicago and Green Bay can play spoiler. I don't think Detroit would lose to either one of them at this point here. Chicago has Justin Fields, but he's pretty much the whole team puts on his back, and as good as Justin Fields is, he can't do it all. And Green Bay is just, Aaron Rodgers just looks burnt out at this point. I just don't think they could mount anything against the Lions. So that would mean the Lions win at all 3 games, and puts them at 10-7, which then in my playoff standings would put the Giants at 6th and Detroit at 7th, which I think might have a decent chance at happening. Of course, now that I predicted that, it will be wrong, because I'm absolutely awful at guessing games and how they're going to go. But then at that point there, if that would be the case, you'd have the Giants in 6th place, the Lions in 7th. The Niners, like I said, could still finish 2nd or 3rd. So, finishing 2nd, you get 2 playoff games as long as you win Wild Card Weekend. I think San Francisco can beat any of these teams in a playoff matchup. It's no offense to any of them. It's just, Detroit actually might be the hardest one out of those 4, just because how Detroit's rolling right now. But I think the Niners would be able to beat the Giants handily, Washington handily. Seattle, divisional game. I know it would be the third time. It would be their 3rd time playing, and of course, trying to beat a team 3 times in a season is very difficult. But I think they would still be able to pull that off. So I honestly don't see any bad matchups here. Like I said, Detroit's probably the hardest one, and I think the Niners could beat Detroit there. Detroit's defense, like I mentioned, while it's gotten better, is still nothing to write home about. So that's kind of where the situation ends up being right now. Obviously, it'll solidify more and more over the next few weeks, because it has to. We're getting to the end of the season. But right now, the Niners would play the Giants if it started today, and I would be okay with that matchup entirely. And I would be okay with the Lions matchup if my predictions run true, or any of them really. But that's kind of the update here for the Niners. I do have a Faithful Fables coming out this week. Usually I record those on Tuesdays of the given week. It is Monday evening here as I'm recording this. So this will be coming out most likely tomorrow for the Faithful Fables, but I wanted to post this up here just to give an idea of what's going on with the playoff picture and where things can go from here. But thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week with another update on this. Thanks. See ya.